Hey Commander, in part 1 we broke down the Insidious Six raid team, and if you missed that video then check it out right here. But today we're shifting focus to the 10 other Sinister Six tagged characters. These villains haven't had any stat or ability reworks, but they can still find new life as plug and play options. Now I want to stress this clearly, there is no theory crafting with the Insidious Six team in raids. That team is locked right down. Where these characters can shine, however, is in your PvP game modes. But if you're not ready to take them to level 105 and gear tier 19 and purple ISO 3, then don't waste your resources. Anything less than that and they're going to crumble before they can do their job. So with that in mind, let's count them down from worst to best, starting with number 10.
Hard, no cash to spend, free to play till the very end.
Coming in at number 10, we have none other than Rhino. And his basic ability, Pummel, will attack the primary target for 240% damage and apply defense down. Now this ability is one that you are definitely not going to T4 because all it is going to do is add damage to the primary target. Rhino's special Furious Charge is something that he is going to start with, and you can already start to see the problems that are going to be caused here. The very first word on his special is Gain Taunt, so he is our taunting tank. However, because he is not a new stat meta character and he's not Black Knight, his taunt isn't going to last very long. He is going to be pummeled into the dust. But other than that, his ability will clear one negative effect from self and each adjacent ally. So back in the days where we had a little bit of theory crafting where placement went, we had to put our characters in the right places. He's then going to attack the primary and all adjacent targets for 290% damage, and this attack cannot be blocked. The T4 on this one, again, you could completely skip. He is only adding 60% damage to the primary and secondary targets there. His ultimate, Stampede, again, you're going to be able to start with this ability. It's going to attack the primary and adjacent targets for 320% damage. It's going to apply Taunt to the primary target. So that's quite a useful little ability. And if this character has 2 or more Superior Six allies, it'll fill his speed bar for 75%. Which is okay, I suppose, but the problem is, again, he is an old stat character. The T4 on this, again, completely skippable, is going to add 60% damage to the primary target and secondary targets, making that a 380% damage attack. But again, as I said, completely and utterly skippable. And Rhino Hide, this is his passive, and on spawn it is going to apply defense up and counter to self and all Sinister Six allies. That is quite interesting. Defense up, early doors, and counter. On blind, so this is another really good ability, especially if Magneto was to come back into the fray somewhere. We've just had a vote that Magneto has won to be part of the Phoenix Force, so if his new character, his new Phoenix Force character, does have a blind on it, this could come back into play. But on blind, clear blind and one random negative effect from self and each ally, and then fill his speed bar for self by 75%. In war, if this character has 2 or more Superior Six allies, enemies with slow cannot gain charged. So this used to be like a bit of a ability against plug and play ability against Gamma and stopping the Red Hulk from gaining his charges. Gains 5% damage per hero enemy. Gain 15% max health per Sinister Six ally. The T4 on this one, which I have down if you were going to build this character as an essential T4, is to fill his speed bar by plus 25%. So that means he fills his speed bar by 100% on the blind. And then it is an additional 10% max health per Sinister Six ally, which is 25% max health per Sinister Six ally, which means he can gain an additional 100% max health. But again, those new stats, that ain't holding up. So unfortunately for me, Rhino comes in at the very bottom. even if you were to put a purple ISO 3 fortifier on him, which is the ISO 8 class of choice that I would recommend for Rhino. And after Rhino, we have position number 9, and that is Green Goblin. Now, this is the ultimate Green Goblin, the winged Green Goblin from Spider-Man. I want to say it was Into the Spider-Verse, which was the first animated Spider-Man movie that we had with Miles Morales in it. And the basic Goblin Strike is going to attack the primary target for 290% damage, 50% chance to attack adjacent targets for 220% damage. And the T4 on this one, completely skippable again because it is just a damage boost, a 40% damage boost to primary and secondary targets. Burning Rage, which is his special, you are going to start with this ability and it's going to attack the most injured enemy with stealth for 390% damage, plus a bonus attack for that target for 390% damage. If no targets have stealth, he's going to attack the primary target instead for 500% damage, and attacks deal 50% damage per positive effect on the target. So this is a pretty brutal attack. Characters killed by this attack cannot be revived. This attack is unavoidable and cannot be blocked. Again, I've got the T4 on this down as a skippable T4. It is adding that 90% damage, which would mean that you would get that 390% plus the 90, which is 480% damage for characters with stealth, or 590 if no target has the stealth. It's a lot of damage, but again, this is an old stat meta character, so the damage numbers are not going to be there for them, even with the upgrade that they've had given to them to make up for the shocker passive that they are missing. Fire and Brimstone is the ult, and this one is going to attack the primary target for 280% damage and then attack 5 random targets for 280% damage. Again, this is another just pure damage increase. You can tell that this was made at a time when the game was a little bit more easier. Again, completely skippable T4. And his passive, Cauterize. This is a nice to have T4. On any Spider-Verse or Underworld ally's turn, he's going to remove 1 positive effect from 2 random enemies that have a positive effect but do not have Safeguard. And on War Offense, if Mr. Negative is an ally, gain 350% extra focus for this action. On Spawn, he's going to apply defense down for 2 turns to the enemy with the most resistance. This attack cannot be resisted. On War Offense, if Mr. Negative is an ally on Spawn, apply defense down to all enemies. And if an enemy is Mystic, apply defense down for 2 turns. This attack cannot be resisted. Now, this team, the Underworld team, was made to go against the Darkhold team in War, so hence the big call-outs to Mystic. Gain 10% max health on War Offense, gain 15% armor for self and Underworld allies. The T4 on this is going to give him an additional 10% max health, so 20% max health, and an additional 15% armor for self and Underworld allies, which means they're going to get a 30% armor boost on War Offense. But again, old stat character, old stat team in Underworld, really not worth building this character. If I was going to build him nowadays, though, the ISO 8 of choice for this character would be Raider. Coming in at number 8, we have Electro. And her basic Electroshock attacks the primary target for 210% damage. In War, if this character has 2 or more Superior Six allies, reduce speed bar for the primary target by 20%, and then fill their speed bar by 20%. Now, the T4 on this one, I've got down as completely skippable because it is just a damage boost. But this character is very, very interesting where the new Insidious Six team comes from. We have this week seen the testing from the envoys of the Insidious Six team, and as I thought from their kits, this team is all about lapping your opponent. They are glass cannons. And so Electro brings with her this reducing of speed bar, this turn meter rewind, as well as filling her own speed bar by 20%. And that is, to me, quite interesting because you can unlock this with her and Superior Spider-Man and one other Superior Six ally. Very, very interesting, but still only coming in at position number 8. Livewire, this is her special, and this is going to attack the primary target for 300% damage. Bonus attack the primary target for 100% piercing per positive effect on the target. That is huge. In war, clear 1 charge from the primary target per positive effect on the target and gain +1 charge. The T4 on this one I have put as a high value because if this character has 2 or more Superior Six allies, it will gain an additional +2 charge. So that means that she will gain 3 charged from this ability. Chain Lightning, this is her ultimate, and this is going to attack the primary target for 300% piercing. We love the piercing damage because this is bypassing armor. Attack all other enemies for 230% piercing. Clear all positive effects on the primary target. Clear 2 positive effects on each secondary target. So clearing positive effects, very, very nice. Apply offense down and defense down to all enemies. That's going to be pretty good. This attack gains 100,000% extra focus. So you're not going to need to worry about the putting a skirmisher on her because that extra focus that they've got is going to mean that those positive effects will get cleared quite nicely and the offense down and the defense down should stick. This attack cannot be counterattacked. That's always quite good. Protecting us from those new stat meta counterattacks is always quite nice. The T4 on this one, again, I've put down as a high value T4 because it is going to add that additional 50% piercing for 300% piercing to the 350% piercing, sorry, to the primary target and 280% piercing to all other enemies. It will also apply offense down, not just for 1 turn, but for 2 turns, and the same for the defense down. So that is really quite good. But this is why you want her charged, is because of this unlimited power. So on turn, she's going to gain +1 charge up to a maximum of 5. In war, on ally Sinister Six turn, gain +1 charged. If that ally is also Superior Six, she's going to gain +2 charged instead. At the end of this turn, or the end of any turn, sorry. So at the end of any turn, if this character has 5 or more charged, attack the most injured enemy for 200% damage, then lose 5 charged. And it's going to gain 10% piercing damage per charge that she has on her. Now, the T4 on this one, again, I have put down as high value because this is going to add an additional 100% damage to the most injured enemy, making that 300% damage on any turn, out of turn damage. It is also going to gain an additional 15% piercing per charge. So that is 25% piercing. So that can quite easily make that damage more and more piercing damage. So that is quite good, especially on a old stat meta character. And she also benefited from the Shocker rework, where basically the damage portion of his passive was taken away. He used to give damage to Sinister Six characters, and what they've done is, instead of having that, they've baked that damage stat into all these old characters. Now, I've got Electro down as a striker for my ISO 8 choice for her. I believe Jarvis recommends Raider, but I am saying striker because what I want out of her is that turn meter rewind. And especially if I'm going with my Insidious Six characters and putting her with them, being able to do those turn rewinds on top of what's already going on with the turn meter increases and the turn meter rewinds that is coming from Hobgoblin and from Superior Spider-Man, I think this is going to be a pretty good combo. And coming in at number 7, we have the main character. If you think Sinister Six, you will normally be thinking Dr. Octopus. And his Tentacle Slam is his basic attack. This is going to attack the primary target for 260% damage and apply slow for 2 turns. This attack cannot be dodged. This basic is a skippable T4 in all honesty. It is just adding damage to the primary target. So 60% damage, making that 320% damage. Sinister Recharge. Now, this is an essential T4. This is something you're going to open with, and it is going to apply +2 charged up to a maximum of 10 to self and all chargeable Sinister Six allies. It is going to summon a missing Sinister Six ally from the following list: Shocker, Vulture, Rhino, Mysterio, or Green Goblin. If the missing Sinister Six ally is already summoned, fill that character's speed bar by 100%. It's going to apply 3 regeneration for 2 turns to self and all allies. That's pretty cool. And the T4 on this is going to apply the +3 charged and flip 3 negative effects into positive effects on self and all Sinister Six allies. And the reason why this is essential isn't because it is adding the extra charges or it's flipping the negative effects into positive effects on self and all Sinister Six allies. No. The reason why is because that list of chargeable characters, Shocker, Vulture, Rhino, to a degree, Mysterio, definitely. Those characters, when you summon a character, the abilities that they have come from not your own character, but from the abilities that your character that summons has. So, for example, if you have the T4 in the basic, the special, the ultimate, and the passive for the summoner, the summoned character will also have their basic, their special, their ultimate, and their passive all T4'd. So it's very, very important because the T4s, as we've gone through with Vulture already and Shocker in the Insidious Six video, again, link to that up in the top corner there, but also with Mysterio, those abilities are absolutely key. So you want to have this T4'd. And the ultimate superior villain, this comes up on his turn 2. It's going to attack all enemies for 290% damage, flip 2 positive effects to negative effects, prolong the duration of all negative effects by 1 on each target. That's really good, especially working with the Insidious Six because they do like their negative effects being out. This attack cannot be counterattacked or dodged. And the T4 on this one, again, I've put down as high value. It is only damage to all enemies, so that does make this attack 350%. But again, it is high value because of what it applies to the other characters who he summons in. And finally, we have his essential T4, which is his passive Master Planner. On turn, if charged, he's going to gain a +1 deflect and +2 speed up to a maximum of 5. And apply +1 deflect and +1 speed up to a maximum of 5 to all adjacent allies, and then he's going to lose 1 charge. On block, so block value, he is going to heal self and all Sinister Six allies for 20% of this character's max health, which won't be massive because obviously he has not got a stat increase, so his health pool is going to be very small. In War or Crucible, when this character or a chargeable Sinister Six character drops below 20% health, fill that character's speed bar by 100% and clear heal block. He's also going to gain 20% block chance. Sinister Six allies are going to gain 20% block chance. He's going to gain 40% max health, and Sinister Six allies are going to gain 40% max health. Going to gain 10,000% resistance against offense down, and all allies are going to gain 10,000% resistance against offense down, which is, again, very niche, but quite nice. The 40% max health is interesting, especially if we're giving those new stat meta characters that extra health. That could be very, very interesting to see how tanky they could get with that. The T4 on this is going to gain +15% damage. And chargeable Sinister Six allies are going to gain an additional 15% damage. That's, again, quite nice for those of them that are chargeable. I don't think there are any that are chargeable in the Insidious Six, though, so that's not really going to come into effect for them. But again, the reason why we are making this a T4 and certainly an essential T4 is because this passive being T4'd will make sure that Vulture and Shocker and all the other characters that come out, Mysterio, all of their passives will be T4'd as well. So anyone that he summons is going to be T4'd. And in rank 6 is Swarm, and man, did they do this guy dirty. Matt, what have you done to your favorite character? That is all I want to say if you watch this video. The basic B-Ball is going to attack the primary target for 190% damage. It's going to do 50% drain. It's going to rebound chain to 1 to 2 adjacent targets for 150% damage and 50% drain. And then if charged, he's going to lose 1 charge. And if not, he's going to attack himself for 300% damage. Counterattack does not break this chain. And when forced to attack an ally, this character deals less damage to infestation characters. The T4 on this one does add, I believe it's 50% damage. They've not got it written down there, but I believe it knocks this up to 240% damage, I think it was, with 50% drain. And it is always going to chain to 1 to 2 adjacent targets. Sorry. So I've got that down as a high value T4 because of that extra chain that's going to happen. One thing to mention about Swarm is that he has a stat rework for the infestation team. So he does have those new meta stats. It's really the only reason why he's reached position 6. Beast Scream. Going to start with this one. It's a special. Attacking the primary target for 200% damage and apply disrupted. Bonus attack for 100% damage and apply defense down. Bonus attacks again for 100% damage and apply slow. If charged, he's going to lose 1 charge. If not, he's going to attack himself for 400% damage. He literally just kills himself eventually. On war defense, if Spider-Man Big Time is an ally, this attack will also have the additional effects without losing an additional charge of this character's ultimate Be Gone, targeting the primary target. Now, I've put this down as a nice to have T4 because in the context of the Sinister Six and using these characters as plug and plays into the Insidious Six team, and also possibly using them in different game modes, this doesn't really do anything unless you have Spider-Man Big Time around. And the ultimate Be Gone is a turn 2 ability. It's going to attack all enemies for 300% damage and apply 2 bleed for 2 turns. If he has charge, he will lose 1 charge. And if he's not charged, he's going to attack himself for 500% damage. And the T4 on this one, again, will have the additional effects without losing the additional charge of this character's special Bee Scream, targeting the primary target. So again, a nice to have T4 because I do believe actually that this is again tied behind Spider-Man Big Time. They just haven't got it written there. And his passive, which is essential because on spawn, he's going to gain 8 charged rather than 4 charged. So that is going to give him those turns of charged before he starts eating himself. But this ability used to do so much more. I remember this used to give a damage bonus, I'm pretty sure, to the team. And since that rework, that has been taken away. So poor old Swarm. On spawn, he gains 4 charged. With the T4, he's going to gain 8 charged. So I've put that down as an essential T4. On turn, he's going to heal himself for 20% of this character's max health and flip 2 negative effects to positive effects. And he's going to gain a 3% dodge chance per charged. Again, as I said, an essential T4 here for that one. As for ISO 8 choice for Swarm, I actually really like him as a raider. He has that multiple attack on his special. He's got the attack all enemies on his ultimate. I just think it's and also the chain attack on his basic. So I think that raider is a good choice for him. So now we're going to go into the meat and potatoes. We're into the top 5 now. And coming in at number 5 is, again, one of my more favorite villains from Spider-Man, Curtis Connors, aka Lizard. And they did him a bit dirty in the game where his like model was concerned. I think he looks a bit dopey, really. But let's go over Lizard. And his basic Predator's Rage is going to attack the primary target for 200% piercing. It will flip regeneration, apply bleed, and heal block. Bleed is really good because that is going to tie up nicely with Scorpion from the Insidious Six. So we like that. He's then going to chain to 2 adjacent targets for 80% piercing. He's going to flip regeneration on them and then apply bleed and heal block. Now the T4 on this one I've put down as skip, and it is something I have personally skipped on my own Lizard, which is to add an additional 40% piercing to the primary and secondary targets. So that is 240% piercing to the primary and then 120% piercing to the secondaries. His special, though, is a different story. Tail Whip is one that you're going to start with. This is going to attack the primary and adjacent targets for 220% damage. And he's going to do the following to the primary and adjacent targets. He's going to flip a random positive effect to slow. He's going to flip another random positive effect to heal block. And then he's going to flip all other positive effects to negative effects. If this character does not have trauma, he's going to transfer all negative effects from Sinister Six allies to self, and then flip all negative effects on self to positive effects. If negative effects were flipped, he's going to heal himself for 5% per negative effect flipped. So that's pretty good. He's got some heal in there. He's going to gain Taunt. Now, I know earlier on I said Rhino, pre-taunting tank. The biggest difference between Rhino and Lizard is a extremely quick pre-taunting tank. He does also, as we will see later on, come with his own death proofs. So that is going to help us quite a lot. He's going to gain Taunt. This attack is unavoidable. Now, I've got this one down as a nice to have T4. The T4 on this is going to add an additional 80% damage to the primary and secondary targets. We're not worried about the damage. 300% damage against new stat meta characters is merely a sniff in the ocean. Why it is a nice to have T4 is because if any target is a hero, Spider-Verse, or is a support, it is going to apply ability block to that target. So that is the primary target or the adjacent targets. If any of those are either hero, Spider-Verse, or support, it will apply ability block to them. And his ultimate Reptilian Assault, which is generally what you are going to go and open with, is going to do the following. Attack all enemies for 200% damage, clear disrupted from all allies, spread all positive effects, excluding stealth, taunt, and regeneration from self to all Sinister Six allies. So that's going to work across the board for him, which is really nice. Gain taunt for 1 turn and immunity for 2 turns. And the T4 on this is going to add an additional 100% damage to all enemies, and then copy and clear all positive effects from all enemies to self. That is, again, really, really good. And so I have that down as a high value T4. His passive, however, is a nice to have T4. Now on spawn, he is going to apply free deflect to self and all Sinister Six allies. He's going to gain +5 death proofs. So there we go. That is exactly what we were talking about. And if there are any Spider-Verse enemies, it's going to fill this character's speed bar by 40%. Again, mix that in with Shocker and his speed bar fill for protectors, and you have an extremely, extremely quick Lizard. When a Green Goblin Classic ally drops below 50% max health, heal this character for 30% of this character's max health and gain Taunt. He gains 50% resistance. Superior Six allies gain 50% resistance. And the T4 on this is going to give him an additional 30% block chance, which I have put down as a nice to have T4. Now, Lizard, out and out, is a striker. We want him as a striker for that bleed damage. We also want him as a striker so that he will get that basic off of his Reptilian Assault and off of his special. If you hit into a character with a vulnerable, and that will start this gravy train going. Now, I think for me, This is possibly going to be the character that I put with the Insidious Six. So I'm thinking actually at this point, we're going to keep Shocker, we're going to keep Lizard, and then we're going to run the 3 Insidious Six together so that we've got Lizard acting as that pre-taunting or that tank, that early going tank, but also he's got that ability to put the bleeds out there for Scorpion to start working off of for his standing passive, and this will be especially in war. In position 4 we have Kraven the Hunter, and Kraven's basic knife work is going to attack the primary target for 240% damage, going to chain to one adjacent target for 240% damage, and apply offense down on each target. He'll then gain counter. T4 on this one, completely skippable. It's just an extra 60% damage, not worth your resources. Can't run, can't hide, however, which is his special, is a very high value T4. It's going to attack the primary target for 280% damage and apply ability block. It's going to chain to 4 adjacent targets for 280% damage and then apply offense down for 2 turns to each target, flipping 2 random positive effects to negative effects on each target as well, and clearing charged. In Crucible, he is going to instead attack all enemies for 280% damage. This is huge in Crucible. It's absolutely amazing. He's going to apply ability block to all controller enemies as well as the primary target. And then this attack gains 70% extra crit chance against support enemies. This attack cannot be dodged or counterattacked. The T4 on this one I have down as high value because you're adding 60% damage to the primary secondary targets. Again, we are not worried about the damage. What we are worried about is flipping the immunity. And when you flip immunity on someone, that normally ends up flipping to disrupt. And that can be huge, especially on characters that want to put taunt up. That can be absolutely vital. Big Game Hunter, this is his ultimate, and it is a turn 2 ability, but you normally get round to Kraven's turn 2. This is going to attack all enemies for 290% damage, apply 2 bleed. Again, something we would really like within our Insidious Six. Offense down and slow. Really, really quite a good ability. It's going to flip death proof on each target. It's also going to clear charged. If the target has offense down, it's going to apply 2 additional bleeds to that target and apply slow for 2 turns to that target. Characters killed by this attack cannot be revived, so we've got another permakill there. The T4 on this one, again, I've put down as a high value T4. It's going to add 60% damage. That's not what that's not its high value. The high value here is flipping all stealth on each target. Now we have a number of characters at the moment in War and in Cosmic Crucible that do have stealth. Looking at you, Invisible Woman. So this can come in clutch. The passive, the most dangerous game. When this character gains charge, if they do not currently have charge, they're going to flip stealth to disrupted on all enemies. Now, once a character has disrupted, not only can it not gain taunt, it also cannot regain stealth, which is really, really important. On enemy turn, he is going to gain +1 charge up to a maximum of 10. He's going to flip slow on a random non-summoned ally that has slow. Good luck, we're not having any summons in this in these teams. Flip heal block on a random non-summoned ally that has heal block. Enemies with offense down that cannot gain death proof. It's amazing. It's going to gain +5% damage per charge. Not a lot of damage, but every little helps. Gain 60% focus. Sinister Six allies gain 60% focus. Now this extra 60% focus, that could help you land some of your negative effects that you might need to land later on if you are struggling with those at lower star levels. But the T4 on this I have put down as essential. On spawn, if this character has 2 or more Superior Six allies, apply Safeguard to self and all Sinister Six allies. So as long as he has 3 Superior Six 3 members of the Superior Six with him, which you could do, you could put 2 Superior Six plus Superior Spider-Man plus Scorpion plus Hobgoblin. That would suffice this. And this will apply Safeguard to self and all Sinister Six allies. Now, with Superior Spider-Man adding immunity on spawn and him adding Safeguard on spawn, we effectively have ourselves another mini Infinity Watch. Mysterio is rightfully coming in at position number 3. This character is just great. The last time he had a rework, and the rework they did to his kit has just made him have such a long lifespan. The old one too, this is his basic. It's going to clear 2 positive effects from the primary target. Attack the primary target for 200% damage. In war, it's going to gain 2 evade, gain +1 charge up to a maximum of 5. This attack cannot be blocked or dodged. The T4 on this is going to add an additional 50% damage. As we said, we don't do T4s if they're just adding damage, but this is going to clear 3 positive effects, not 2 positive effects. So this is a very nice to have T4. Master of Illusion, and you're starting to see now why I said earlier about Doc Ock having his special T4'd, because if you do manage to get a Mysterio out of the Doc Ock, which you would have to have Shocker, Vulture and Rhino on Doc Ock's team before you actually get to the Mysterio. So this ability here is going to apply blind to the primary target. If this character has 2 or more Superior Six allies, apply blind to all enemies instead. That's amazing. Apply ability block for 2 turns to the primary target. In war, this attack gains 100,000% extra focus. And he's going to gain an assist from a random Sinister Six ally with a 70% chance to gain an assist from a random ally. The T4 on this I've got down as hugely high value. It's going to apply ability block to 1 random adjacent target. And instead of that 70% chance to gain an assist from a random ally, he is always going to gain an assist from a random ally. So that is basically him going in, blinding and ability blocking everyone, and then the Sinister Six allies, or 2 of your Sinister Six allies, are going to come in and pummel someone in the face. His ultimate, Smoke and Mirrors, again, this is an ability that you start with. You can attack all enemies for 290% damage. Again, this isn't going to do much insofar as the fact that he has old stats, and so his damage stat isn't going to be great. If this character has 2 or more Superior Six allies, it is going to flip all positive effects to negative effects on the enemies, which is great. Flipping all positive effects on all enemies, just absolutely brilliant. Apply heal block for 2 turns and disruptive for 2 turns to the primary target and 2 random enemies. That's awesome. The disrupt is key, especially with the tanks that we've got around nowadays. Summon a mirror image for each charged on this character up to a maximum of 5 mirror images and then lose all charged. In war, this attack gains 100,000% extra focus. And the T4 on this one, which again I have down as a high value T4, is going to add an additional 60% damage. We're not worried about the damage. I know that makes it 350% damage, but 350% of a lower damage stat, a non-post Ares damage stat, doesn't really matter. Apply heal block and disrupted to all enemies, though. That is the key. And Grand Masquerade on spawn, he is going to apply 2 deflect to self and all Sinister Six allies. This is his passive, by the way. He's going to gain immunity, and in war, he's going to gain +2 charged up to a maximum of 5 and summons 2 mirror images. If this character has 2 or more Superior Six allies, enemies cannot gain immunity. This is absolutely huge, because one of the things that the Insidious Six wants to do is they want to be landing their negative effects. And obviously you can't do that if your opponent has immunity. But if you got good old Mysterio here in there with basically with Superior Spider-Man and 1 other Superior Six member, enemies aren't going to be able to gain immunity. That is absolutely bonkers. On death, he's going to summon 2 mirror images with 2 death proofs. 1 mirror image has their special ability. On mirror image death, he's going to gain. They're going to gain stealth and gain 20% focus per non-summoned Spider-Verse ally. Spider-Verse allies are going to gain 20% focus, and Spider-Verse allies are going to gain an additional 10% max health. Now, 10% max health doesn't sound a lot, but again, if we're putting that 10% max health on a post-stat Ares stat character, that can start to matter. On spawn, he's going to summon 3 mirror images if you put this T4 in, and I would recommend this as an essential T4. And in War on Death, he's going to summon an additional mirror image, and Spider-Verse allies are going to gain an additional 10% max health. That is 20% max health to Spider-Verse allies, which again is great for these new post-Ares stat characters. Coming in at number 2 is Green Goblin Classic. What can we say about Green Goblin Classic? Now, personally, for me, I think he is a great choice. I am going to have to put some extra resources into my Green Goblin Classic if I want to build him, because my Green Goblin Classic, unfortunately, is still stuck at those 5 red stars. Back when we had a bit of a DPC drought, I didn't buy the strike passes or the battle passes, so I wasn't getting the DPCs from those. And so that meant that characters like Green Goblin Classic had to take a back seat where red stars were concerned. But now we are getting more DPCs, it feels like. I might be able to loop back and get him his red stars and his diamonds even. Goblin Bomb is his basic, and this is basically going to attack the primary and adjacent targets for 260% damage. Again, we're not worried about the damage on these characters. They are all pre-Ares stat characters. They're not going to be doing what your post-Ares stat characters are. And apply defense down. This attack cannot be counterattacked. T4 on this, I've got down as nice to have, and the reason for that is because not only is this ability T4able, it is also an ability that can be awakened, and the awakened ability of him is why we want to T4 this basic. Maniacal Assault. This is a 2-cost ability. It is absolutely brilliant, this ability. Gain offense up and speed up. We love anytime we gain extra damage and extra speed. Clear barrier on the primary target. Again, we've got a lot of barrier going on at the moment in the game. I don't know if anyone's noticed this, but there are a lot of characters with barrier. This helps tremendously. Attack the primary target for 300% damage and do the following to the primary target. It's going to reduce their speed bar by 25%. It's going to flip one random positive effect to defense down, flip all other positive effects into negative effects, and apply heal block for 2 turns. If the primary target, has safeguard, instead gain offense up and speed up for 2 turns. He's then going to attack the primary target for 400% damage, reducing their speed bar by 25%, plus 10% per Sinister Six ally. So that can be a grand total of 65% reduction in speed bar for the character that he attacks if they've got safeguard. This attack cannot be blocked, dodged, or counterattacked. T4 on this one is a very high value T4. It is going to add an additional 350% damage. That is a huge damage increase. I know we said we don't worry about damage, but 350% damage increase is nothing to be sniffed at. It's also going to apply trauma. That's another reason to do it. And in Crucible, which is the game modes we're talking about, Crucible and War here, those PvP game modes, it'll apply trauma for 2 turns instead of the 1. So again, I've got this down as a high value T4. Goblin Bombardment. Clear barrier on all enemies. This one you will open up with, and this is an absolutely amazing ability. It's going to attack all enemies for 150% damage, plus 75% damage against any target with safeguard. It's going to flip one positive effect to a negative effect and apply heal block. It's then going to reduce the speed bar for all enemies by 2%, plus 2% per Sinister Six ally. And in Crucible, he's going to gain +1 charged. Then he'll repeat that attack 2 additional times. This attack cannot be dodged or counterattacked, which is pretty damn cool. If a target does not have any positive effects, apply trauma to that target. And if this character has one or more Sinister Six protector allies, apply safeguard to all Sinister Six allies. So this is basically a call out to having Lizard in a team with him. True Osborne. I've got the T4 on Goblin Bombardment down as a essential, and that is because, again, Goblin Bombardment is another ability that has a awakened ability attached to it, but also the safeguard is just absolutely brilliant, and applying trauma. True Osborne, this is his passive, and on spawn he's going to gain +3 charged up to a maximum of 5. In Crucible, he's going to fill his speed bar by 9% per Superior Six ally. So even a 9% speed bar increase fill is pretty damn good, especially when you think that characters like Cable and Kang are filling your speed bar by 5%. 9% sounds a heck of a lot. While this character has charged, lower the damage by 15% and lower resistance by 200% for all enemies. At the end of an enemy turn, if this character has charged, he's going to attack that enemy and the adjacent targets for 150% damage. This is that out of turn damage that he gets. Apply defense down and flip speed up. Flip 2 additional positive effects to negative effects for those targets and lose 1 charge. So if he's got charged on him, he's going to do that attack. He's going to flip their buffs. He's going to apply defense down, and then he's going to lose charge. Gain 20% max health. Sinister Six allies gain 20% max health, and this is another reason why he has made it to number 2. 20% max health on a new stat meta character is going to be pretty impactful, in my opinion. The T4 on this one is going to increase the damage to the primary and secondary targets by 50%. We're not overly worried about that. This character isn't here to do the damage. While this character has charged, ability block and vulnerable cannot be applied to self or any Sinister Six allies. Again, this is absolutely huge. This is stopping your opponents from controlling your Insidious Six characters because they all have the Sinister Six tag. Now, as for ISO 8 choice on Goblin, I formerly went down the route of Striker with him. However, nowadays, I would probably be very, very tempted to leave him as a Raider, trying to get that extra damage out of the criticals that you would get from him. And finally, the number 1 choice, and I cannot believe I am saying this, but Spider Slayer is actually the number 1 plug and play character for this Insidious Six team. And the reason why I'm saying this is because his basic Rock'em Sorum is going to attack the primary target for 50% piercing. It's going to bonus attack 2 times for 50% piercing. That's pretty cool. Apply offense up to a non-summoned Sinister Six ally with the highest damage that doesn't have offense up. Cool. This attack cannot be dodged. Again, 50% piercing to the primary secondary attacks. It isn't going to do a lot. That T4 you can completely and utterly skip. Bugle Blaster is going to attack all enemies for 250% piercing. It's going to flip the offense up, evade, and speed up. That's pretty cool. So that'll flip that to offense down. That'll flip speed up to slow. And the evades, I can't remember what they will flip to. But if there are any Spider-Verse enemies, attack those enemies for 300% piercing instead. This attack cannot be blocked, and this attack is a high value T4 because it is going to add defense up and deflect to self and all villain allies, which is all of your Sinister Superior Insidious Six allies, and does an additional 50% piercing to all enemies, meaning that you're going to attack all your enemies for 300% piercing. And piercing damage is great. Breaking news, this is his ultimate, and this is a turn 2 ability. It's going to apply offense up to self and all Sinister Six allies. It's going to attack the primary target for 270% piercing and have 100% drain. It's pretty good. That's going to give him some form of sustain. Flip 2 positive effects to negative effects. repeat this attack one additional time, and then he will call a Sinister Six ally with the highest damage to attack the primary target. Now, by calling that Sinister Six ally with the highest damage to attack the primary target, that is pretty damn important, because that is going to bring one of your Insidious Six members into the fray. They are going to have the highest damage, so effectively you're getting a little nibble plus a big hit from one of your new stat meta characters. Characters killed by this attack cannot be revived, and this attack ignores defense up and is unavoidable. And 80% piercing to the primary target on the T4 for this one, which I have down as, again, high value. And also, you are going to call 2 Sinister Six allies with the highest damage rather than just the 1 Sinister Six ally to attack the primary target. So again, that is going to be 2 Sinister Six allies or 2 Insidious Six allies that are going to be coming in there to attack the primary target. But this is the reason why he is so good. On spawn, he's going to apply offense up to self and all Sinister Six allies. Now, why is this important? Well, because the character who we are most likely going to drop from this team out of all of them is Shocker. And what Shocker gives to the team is that offense up. So we are not losing that by putting Spider Slayer on the team. If there is an enemy Spider-Verse character, generate 1 ability energy for self. So that is going to mean that Breaking News becomes a turn 1 ability as long as you're going into a Spider-Verse sort of enemy, which I wouldn't say you're going to see much of, but you might do where infestation is concerned. You might do where if people are going to put their own Insidious Six on defense, which I would not recommend. On self or ally crit, clear all vulnerable on this character. That is absolutely huge. Gain 20% armor, gain 20% damage. Sinister Six allies gain 20% armor. Sinister Six allies gain 20% damage. 20% damage boost on a new stat meta Sinister Six character. Ooh-wee, that's going to be good. And then the T4 on this one, which I have got down as essential, and it really is. In Crucible, when this character or any Sinister Six ally has offense up, so this isn't even Superior Six, this is just targeting the Sinister Six team, they gain 100% accuracy. Now, I know this is locked behind Crucible, but this is one of the game modes that we're looking at using these plug and plays in, is Crucible and War. So your characters having offense up, which are going to have from his passive, are going to gain 100% accuracy. That means Blind has no effect. That means Spider Weaver has no effect. That is just absolutely great. It means your team is still going to be able to go in and do all their damage that they need to do. Now, as per usual, I have made an infographic for this, which will be available on the Jetson Squad Discord. Link for that Discord will be in the description down below. Now, there were a couple of characters who I didn't mention the ISO 8 classes on. So firstly, I'm really sorry, Doc Ock. Healer is the best ISO 8 class for him without a doubt in the world. Mysterio is going to be best as a skirmisher. This is because peeling off those abilities, and if you are hitting into a vulnerable with your skirmisher, you're going to peel off even more abilities, more of their positive effects. That's what we want to be doing. And last but not least, Spider Slayer is going to be a striker. Now, one thing about Spider Slayer that I will mention is that it is another source of hammer tech being used. That can be difficult. I know certainly I am lacking on the hammer tech at the moment, especially considering that you have both Shocker and Vulture using that hammer tech as their centerpiece unique as well. So that's the rest of the Sinister Six ranked from worst to best. Remember that these characters are only worth building if you are taking them all the way to 105, 19, and ISO Purple 3. Anything less, you are throwing away your resources. So I want to know from you guys down below, Who, if anyone, are you going to build from this Sinister Six list? I'd love to hear from you. And if you want more help building your teams, then why not check out one of these videos right here.